Ramen noodles, a delicacy among college students and poor people. Ramen noodles were invented in 1955 by a man named Tom Cruise, and he was a part of the World War II, and he used to shoot dogs. The factory was made in 1942. It was called Noodle Time. The noodles have become a popular icon in American society. We are now going to enter the factory, where all the noodles and nos are made. The factory is filled with a bunch of these units. The noodle unit is walking towards its workstation, where he will then regurgitate the noodles and the juices that are needed to make the ramen noodles. Noodle units were made in 2002 by a man named Jeff McKinnon. He made them in a trailer park in his backyard. Fun fact, the units were found at a local trailer park. Now, he is wiping off the excess residue. He will then put the repurposed noodles into the cup. Now the noodle unit is regurgitating the juices out of his esophagus. The juices are for the coolie downy machine, which small people will then sift it out. The noodle units really do the same thing that humans do. They regurgitate it and bring it out of their stomach where it originally was. Now it is time to get the noodles out of the mouth. It is coming from the mouth. He is now using a utensil that is used most of the time when you deposit noodles. Noodle units use this process called noodle get out of my mouthy. They then bring it out of their esophagus while also puking at the same time. In 1935, there was an invention called Noodles. And the noodles, how they're made, is that they're made into the stomach of one of these units. The noodles are made from the large intestine. The large intestine makes all the noodles. The large intestine makes shenangbings. The shenangbings are then thrown up into the small intestine, where they then become the large intestine. The wrinkle bops are then heated up and then taken out of the large intestine. The shingle bopsh is then poured into the esophagus of the unit by a little man named Fred. Towards the end of the process, this is when the noodles start to come out in bigger chunks. He uses his utensil, and the spoon scoops out the noodles and then is put into the cups, ready to be cooled down. The packaging process is simple. The noodle unit also has adhesive on the ends of his teeth that he uses to seal the packages. Most packages in the United States are heat sealed. However, the Noodle Time factory seals everything with the noodle units. He then puts the salivic units into the bag, and then the bag is reversed back into the bag. He is now packaging the straws, so then you can sip the nos. For this next step, he brings out a plastic bag out of his gluteus maximus, and he brings it to the coolie down machine. The Jeffs can withstand 300 degrees Fahrenheit of noodles, but this specific batch is a little over, so then he will use a plastic bag that he got from his crotch. He then brings the plastic bags back into another plastic bag for repurposing. The noodle units then put the plastic bags back into their crotch, and then they put the noodles into the cooling down machine. It cools it down by a process called coolio-nimbus. Coolio-nimbus is a process where the water is he must wait a full 24 hours for the noodles to cool down. He's now using another utensil called a ladle. The ladle allows him to sift out all of the liquids. It then dries out all of the noodles. The next step is the drying process. The drying process is a process that is a process. The water is then pumped into the noodle unit, which is then poured into a can of NOS. He now, by using reverse liquid, he puts it back into the NOS can. These NOS cans are then brought to a factory in another week. Now he is shaking the bag, and he's shaking the cup. So then they don't... Now, it is time to put the vegetables into the sacks. The sacks are then packaged with the cup. The vegetables come from a farm in Tijuana, where children slaves are then forced to farm it. They get inside of the noodle unit because the Tijuanan children put it there. The NOS cans are then packaged into spherical bags, so then they then go to the factory. Now he is taking the noodles to inspection to make sure that they are healthy. Inspection takes little to no time. Hot and spicy noodles, specifically, the factory produces 1,000 per day. That is 75,000 per year. And now it is brought towards the grocery store. And now it is brought to the grocery store. And now it is brought to the store.